Hey everybody, Steven here with the Agorist Project. Today we're going to go over an article which was the second installment to the Agorist Project's blog page that you can find at agoristproject.wordpress.com and even Facebook at facebook.com/agoristproject. This article is titled Sheep Among Wolves and the Liberty Gospel. It's taken out of the passage of Matthew chapter 10, verses 16 through 19. There's not going to be really any individual points on this one, but rather we're just going to make our way through the scripture, and we're just going to talk about it. So let's see. Verse is going to open up with verse 16. Look, I am sending you out as sheep among wolves. So be as shrewd as snakes and harmless as doves. So sheep and wolves, two extremely polar subjects of imagery, and an analogy nearly synonymous with night and day, black and white, fire and ice, etc. On one hand, you have a natural-born follower, and on the other, a natural-born leader. One is a natural pacifist, and the other is a natural aggressor. One is a natural wanderer, and the other a natural conqueror. One is everything society tells us we shouldn't be, and the other is everything it says that we should aspire to. So sheep are infamously known for their lack of intelligence, have become a symbol of weakness. They are followers, often inclined to elect their leader based on the first thing that moves. Sheep, despite these tendencies, are natural agorists who flock to large open spaces where they live peaceably amongst themselves. Though these large open spaces provide ideal living conditions, they are not territorial animals and will passively flee almost any threat as they move on in search of their next agora. Wolves, however, are known for their keen ability to organize, assimilate, and centralize their power in what we know as pacts. This information is by no means uncommon knowledge to anyone, but I believe I may be able to shine an uncommon light upon it. Wolf packs are intelligently designed to operate within a specific tier system which has proven imminent to their powerful reputation: alpha, beta, and omega. Alpha, as we know, is a position reserved only for the most capable. If ever there is a void in this position, it is immediately filled by he who is able to take it. Betas act as the alpha's second in command, and omegas are considered the lesser of the three, who have virtually no authority whatsoever. It is in this system that lies the key to their success, but success for what? To conquer. Wolves are creatures of territory. They use this system as a foolproof assurance in establishing their dominion over these territories, often over-expanding their reach much further than what is even necessarily required for their own survival, until, of course, they come into contact with an opposing system. At this point, the two systems will either fight against each other in order to defend or expand their territory, or they will form a temporary alliance in order to overpower another opposing system, a victory from which they both share mutual benefit. This systematic ambition, though the key to their success it may be, results in one of the leading causes of wolf deaths being wolves themselves. In this context, I send you out as sheep among wolves begins to take on a much less abstract and much more tangible meaning than that which is typically taught us. I send you out as agorists preaching the gospel of liberty among those who want to assimilate you into their systems, rule over you, and conquer one another in their lust for power at the expense of the very lives they claim to lead. I send you out as agorists among statists. This interpretation of the scriptures, I don't believe, will be welcomed with open arms by any means. But for those who are willing to investigate the matter further, let's consult the verses that follow. But beware, for you will be handed over to the courts and will be flogged with whips in the synagogues. You will stand trial before governors and kings because you are my followers. But this will be your opportunity to tell the rulers and other unbelievers about me. When you are arrested, don't worry about how to respond or what to say. God will give you the right words at the right time. Matthew chapter 10, verses 17 through 19. So the gospel of Jesus is the gospel of liberty. And when we as agorists both practice and preach liberty among statists, a doctrine which threatens the power of their system, we will come to expect nothing less than this. You will be handed over to the courts. You will stand trial before governors and kings. When you are arrested, all are guarantees Jesus makes to those who follow him. The system was designed to protect the system, and no one who complies with it will face these consequences. As for the followers of Jesus, we are not called to comply. No one stands trial before governors and kings who isn't handed to the courts. No one is handed to the courts who hasn't been arrested. No one is arrested who hasn't defied their laws, and no one defies their laws who doesn't follow Jesus into civil disobedience. What then exactly is this civil disobedience that Jesus preaches? The answer can be found back in the first verse we examined just after he sends us out as agorists among statists. So be shrewd as snakes and harmless as doves. Matthew chapter 10, verses 16, part B. The word shrewd in the Greek, phronimos, translates into both the visceral and cognitive aspects of thinking, i.e. the inward and the outward, a personal perspective regulating outward behavior, or the ins and outs, so to speak. But of what? Snakes. The word used for snakes is the word ophis, and is the same word used to describe the serpent in the Garden of Eden, which is typically attributed to the devil or the enemy. So when Jesus says to be shrewd as snakes, he's implying that we know our enemy, the ins and outs, how it thinks, how it acts, how it works, etc. The state system is enemy territory, and in order to properly navigate it, we must begin to educate ourselves in every aspect of it. Now, I'm not insisting that every follower of Jesus needs to become a scholar in politics or economics, but I am insisting that a greater level of involvement in any capacity is absolutely essential to the success of the gospel. Fortunately for Americans, we have been given the gift of the Constitution by our forefathers as the chains to restrain the Leviathan of government and protect the people from its lust for power, and is an excellent place to start. Knowing your rights and knowing which unjust laws the Constitution has granted you protection from are the training wheels to successfully practicing the civil disobedience Jesus has called us to, by being as shrewd as snakes and as harmless as doves. Now, what about harmless as doves? The word harmless in the Greek, akareos, if I'm translating that correctly, literally translates to the word unmixed. That we are to know the ins and outs of our enemy, but that we are not to become one of them. That we as agorists must know the ins and outs of the state and play by its rules in order to beat it at its own game, but never become statist. That simply because a law states that it is legal to do such a thing does not mean that it is right thing to do so. That simply because a law states that it is illegal to do such a thing does not mean it is the right thing to do it, and that our morality is not compromised by the legislation of man, but that it is determined by the heart of God. That is going to conclude this message. Go ahead and like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, the new addition to the Agorist Project, and follow us on agoristproject.wordpress.com.